From Boston, Crockett's Victory Garden.
Welcome to Crockett's Victory Garden. I'm Jim Crockett, and today it's tulip time. I'd like to show you some of these tulips which I planted in here last October. This particular variety, called Pure Gold, is a lily-flowered one, grows about 18 inches tall. All we ever did with these bulbs was to plant them about 6 inches deep last October, and they've grown from there. Now, next to it, I have this large white one. You might see the size of that in relation to my hand. That particular flower is called a Darwin hybrid. Very, very large flower of maybe 24 inches in height. Then, of course, we have the lower growing ones. This one is called Shakespeare. It's just about gone by. Then down the row, we have another one called Ivory Beauty. This is a Darwin, a rather unusual shape, so not quite lily-flowered, but not far from it either. A lovely one. And then next to it, another lily-flowered one, this one called Aladdin. Looks as though it's on fire with the tips of the petals with a golden touch to them. Then down here at the end of the row, would be my favorite type of tulip. This one is a Darwin tulip. Now, of all the kinds of shapes of tulips, this is the one which I happen to prefer. This one is called Dutch Girl. And then way down at the front of the row, we'll see this azalea. Now, this is a very hardy type of azalea called Hinodegeri, and in front of it, I have put in some little Johnny jump-ups. Now, Johnny jump-ups are the plants from which our pansies were developed. And I'm going to give you a couple of names so that you'll remember these. This is the Johnny jump-ups. Just like that. They look like little pansies. And then this azalea, which is one of the hardiest of the semi-evergreen type, is Azalea Hinodegeri. This is a plant which comes from Japan. Now, one of the things that happens here in a tulip garden is that they're out for a period of a month or so, depending upon the varieties that you plant in, the early, mids, and lates. But eventually the time comes when a tulip planting really looks pretty scruffy. The flowers go by and you're left just with these leaves and no stems. And yet, if you want to get flowers next year, you've got to let this nourishment in the leaves descend into the bulbs to build strong bulbs for next year's planting. Well, today I'm going to show you one way that you can do it to add color. For example, right in the midst here, I'm going to set in a petunia seedling. Now, this is a petunia seedling which I started in the middle of February, and I want you to see what a good petunia seedling looks like. Not just one skinny stalk with a flower bud on it, but a half a dozen or more stems. This plant is going to grow very rapidly, and eventually this summer will fill in this whole area with bright pink flowers. That one will go in like that. Now, that doesn't have any color at the moment, so what I'll do here is to add a forget-me-not. Again, this is a plant which I grew from seed, planted last summer. This is a biennial. Plant the seeds in June, July, or August. The plants will live through the winter and blossom in the spring. Every year you should plant a few of the seeds so that you'll have the blossoms the following season. Now, we'll go along here and add a few more of these forget-me-nots and pansies, petunias in here, so that we'll have color all through the season. Now, I want to show you that when we get back into this part of the bed, where the leaves are so thick, there's no way that we can plant around them or interplant now. Another week, I'm going to show you how to lift those bulbs and put them in a holding bed so that you can use the place for planting. Well, let's take a little look at the garden and see how things are growing. You can see here a double row of lettuce. The lighter green ones, this is Butter Crunch. These dark ones, these great big ones, are ruby, and for some reason the ruby seems to grow faster than the Butter Crunch. Then next to it is my second planting of spinach. Notice the spacing between the plants. I know it hurts you when you see me pull out those extra seedlings, but the only way you'll get strong plants in your garden is to thin them. I have one exception, and that happens to be in this very next row. And this is my second planting of peas, an edible pod variety called Oregon sugar pea. Notice how thickly those are set in there. They will be practically self-supporting because they will cling to one another as they grow. We'll pull some soil in around them to help them as they grow along. They're in a little bit of a trench so the roots stay cool. Peas are a cool weather crop, as you know. Next to it, I have the true English daisy. Now this is not a plant for the whole country. On the west coast, from right along by the ocean, these do beautifully. The climate in the Pacific Northwest is very much like that of England, and these plants show their liking to it by blossoming for a very, very long period. Again, we started these seeds last July and grew the plants, covered them over through the winter with pine needles, and here they are just coming into blossom. Very, very handsome flowers. This is the true English daisy, grows about 4 to 6 inches tall. Now, I have a little trick for you next to it, and that's what do you do to keep peas from flopping over? Now these peas are going to grow about 30 inches tall, and I'm going to resort to a very, very old country way of supporting them. I've just brought in a little brush. This happens to be some dead twigs from a birch tree, but all of these little twigs make a place for the tendrils of the peas to cling to. All you do with this is just shove it in around the plants. Actually, we could have put this brush in a little bit earlier, but I noticed that I put in some of this brush yesterday afternoon. Already the plants are beginning to cling to it. And down here at the other end of this row, I have another variety of pea called Little Marvel. Well, now Little Marvel will never grow over 15 to 18 inches tall. It doesn't need a support, except for the fact that I'm hilling soil, as you see here, around the stems. I'm keeping them cool and providing support at the same time. Very essential for this type of pea. And then, in the very next row, I have these plants of a type of turnip called Tokyo Cross. Fast growing. Notice here how far apart these plants are. Every one of these plants has to have its own living space, otherwise they just won't grow. And you've seen here, I guess a couple of weeks ago, you saw me come along and thin my first planting of spinach. And I know there must have been a lot of you who said, gee, I hate to see him pulling out those good plants. Well, this is why we get the good ones here now. You have to do the thinning. Well, the next thing I want to do is to have our first harvest in this garden for this year. And the harvest is not a very spectacular one, but it's going to be scallions. Now, we set out these little onion sets early this spring, and I'm thinning them, as you see now. I set them about an inch apart, and now I'm taking every other one so that we will have room for what's left to develop as onion plants. And we'll get early onions from these. But you might see what these scallions look like. And peel off that old bulb, and you have this beautiful onion. Isn't that nice? Looks to me as though we could have the making of a salad pretty easily. Now, everything in Crockett's Victory Garden doesn't turn out the way Crockett would like them to do. And I'm sure that maybe some of you say, well, it's about time we saw something that didn't work out. Well, 2 weeks ago, I planted in this row, which is about 18 feet long, 3 different kinds of beets, all within moments of one another that went in the ground. This variety did beautifully. Just look at all those seedlings coming along here. Now, I am delighted with the way this one did. This next variety Well, I can see one plant here. That's a pretty poor looking little specimen. There's another one that's coming up over here, and an awful lot of gaps in between. And down at the far end of the row, there's a plant here. There's another one about 10 inches away. There's a long gap with none. I don't know why. I think the moral of my story is, don't you be upset if this same kind of thing happens to you, because it can happen in any garden. Well, I don't know if it was the seeds, whether this part of the row didn't get watered, maybe it dried out one day, I don't know, but this is, I hope it's sort of a lesson of encouragement. Don't be upset because some little thing doesn't quite pan out for you. Next, I want to go over and we'll talk about potatoes and do some planting of a late variety. But before planting the late one, let's take a look at some of these potatoes which I planted just a month ago. This is an early variety. And you can see a plant here, quite a large one. Down in here, a small one, another small one, and then another pretty good sized one at the end of the row. Again, I can't tell you why one plant should come ahead of the other. I can tell you, however, that before the season is over, these plants will all equalize and they'll all produce a good crop. A cultural note here. They're in a trench. That's why I planted them that way. I cover them about 2 inches deep. Now, I'm going to pull soil in around them like this and bury those stems deeper in the ground. Now, by doing it at this time, it gives me an opportunity to kill weeds, because you can see those weeds right in around the potatoes, and they simply get smothered as I pull some soil in over them. Now, that's what you do. That's one of the reasons why you set them in this trench, so that you have a good method of getting the potatoes down where it's cool, because after all, these are kinds of plants that like cool weather. This next variety, by the way, is just beginning to pop. There's one coming in here, another one coming there. Well, now let's go up to this part of the garden, and I want to take these out of the way temporarily and show you just what I have done here. I have a trench 6 inches deep and about 6 or 8 inches wide, a flat bottom trench in which I'm going to lay the seed potatoes. First of all, I must tell you that this part of the garden did not get lime, because it's very essential that potatoes have a lime-free soil. Otherwise, they'll develop a skin disease called scab. What I am going to do here is to put in some 5-10-5 fertilizer in the bottom of this row. Now, you don't need a whole lot, but what I like to do is take it in my hand, sprinkle it along, not too much, just enough so that you can see it on the ground. It's always better to come back and add fertilizer during the growing season than it is to get too much on to begin with. Now, I want to dig that fertilizer into the bottom of the trench, because I don't want those seed potatoes, to hit the actual fertilizer. That should be down underneath where the roots are going to go. Now you can see a lovely seed bed for them. Now we're ready to plant the potatoes themselves. Before I do that, let's talk about seed potatoes. First of all, you don't plant potatoes from seeds. You plant them from other potatoes. You don't get the ones that you get from your produce market. They may have been touched with a sprout inhibitor, so that they won't sprout in your garden any more than they do in the store. The other thing is, it could be a variety that won't do well for you. But go to your garden center, get some certified seed potatoes. Now, if they're this size, about the size of an egg, don't even cut them, just drop them in the ground. But I do like to cut them so that I can get several from one, saving out about 2 to 3 eyes on a piece. Now, this is a variety called Russet Sebago, a good winter variety. Now, they can find their way up that you can drop them in any way you want to. I might as well give them a break and set them about a foot apart with their eyes pointed up, and they'll be off and growing. In about 3 weeks, they'll be out of the ground. Now here's what we do now. Not too deeply. Cover them just about 2 inches. Just about like that. And we'll give, I think I use my hoe, it's a little better for that, for tamping down, because things come up quicker by far if you firm the soil over them. That applies to all kinds of seeds or seed potatoes. Well, that's all there is to getting the potatoes out of the ground. We're now going over and plant some asparagus. I should tell you that I was talking with a friend the other day who said that she knows that the asparagus bed at her house is 75 years old and it's still growing. Well, I know that is easily could be true because I know of beds more than 100 years old that are still producing. But to get beds such as that, the soil must be prepared right. As a matter of fact, if you want a bed to be good for 5 years, you've got to prepare the soil properly. Well, at this time of year, to begin with, let's look at this clump of asparagus right here. In this area, last year at this time, I planted 4 one-year-old roots of asparagus. This plant surely is as big as a normal asparagus plant would be in 3 or 4 years. That's because I put compost underneath it, and that is the secret ingredient to making asparagus grow fast in the home garden. Also, at this time of the year, and 2 or 3 other times during the year, I'm sprinkling some 10-10-10 fertilizer in around those plants, because as big as these clumps look now, they are not large enough to pick. I want these plants to grow not only last year, but also this year. And then next spring, we'll get our first harvest from them. So it's 3 years from the first planting to your first harvest on asparagus. Well, this is what they should look like now. They'll come up here 3 feet tall with that beautiful ferny foliage, which will allow to grow all summer, sending energy every day down to make the roots stronger for another year. Well, let's look over at this trench that I have in here. About a foot deep, 18 inches wide. Beyond that foot, I've dug down in and loosened the soil beneath. And I'm going to begin by spreading down in the very bottom of here some more of the 10-10-10 fertilizer. This is going to go down way below the roots, so we're not going to worry about the roots hitting it at this time. And then I want to bring out to your mind that all of this soil has had lime. Now, we've spread a lot of lime on this soil. I don't want to put any more on here today, but that's the secret is the soil should be close to neutral, and the lime is the way to do it in the eastern part of the country. In the west, it may be that you need sulfur. Well, now this is my secret ingredient, and that's compost. This was corn stalks, bean stalks, old leaves. You can see what I have in here. Marvelous, homogeneous mixture of mostly organic matter. And to the best of my knowledge, there's not a plant growing that can resist it. And I know very well that asparagus can't resist it either. So we'll put 3 or 4 inches of compost down in the bottom of this trench. Now we're ready to put the roots in. And when I have my roots hidden over underneath this pile of dirt to keep them from drying out in the sunshine, but this is what they look like. This is a strong 1-year-old root. Now you see, it's not a very big looking thing. Fat, juicy things which we like to keep moist before planting. In planting, I'm going to set them about 8 inches below the top of the surface and spread those roots out something like an octopus to the best of my ability, just like that. and then we'll cover them over with some of this soil which came out of the trench. And this is my ordinary garden soil, which I say has been limed so that it has the proper acidity to it. And there you see it. Now we'll cover over those gently. Now I'm not going to step on those and make it too firm around them, but I will cover them all together about 2 inches over the top of these buds. I'm going to put these others out of the way, and we'll plant them later on this afternoon. But the point is, set these plants about 2 feet apart in the bed or in your trench. Cover them over about 2 inches deep. As the summer progresses, as I said, I'm going to put the 10-10-10 fertilizer on the side again and again. The trench by next fall will be filled right in even, just as you see this over here. And then our plants next spring will be the size that these are this year. Well, next thing I want to talk about are chrysanthemums, but in passing this piece of the bed, I should say that here is where we're going to plant peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants and okra, things that like a good, warm climate. It's much too cool now to set them outdoors. I have to wait until night temperatures get to be 55 degrees. Well, it's not quite 55, but I have another little trick. They'll just stand out here and shiver if I set them out in this kind of weather. But I buried a thermometer in here. I wanted to see the temperature of the soil. And here you see it. It's about 58 degrees. Well, at 55 degrees, you can plant your beans. Not your lima beans, but your ordinary snap beans. And last week I did that. Planted just a few of them here so that you could see that I'm always willing to take a chance. They're just beginning to come out of the surface here, just like little paper clips. That'll be our first planting of beans. Now let's get to these chrysanthemums. Perhaps you have a clump of chrysanthemums around your garden, something that blossomed last year, and now looks something like this. All of these stems on it. Well, for goodness sakes, don't plant it just like that, because you can't put enough nourishment around it to make them do well. What you have to do is to really divide these little fellas so that you come out eventually with single plants. Now, this is what I'm looking for. Plants just like this, which, by the way, are a little taller than I need them to be. So I'm going to pinch this part off and make a cutting of that so I'll have another plant. But this one is one ready for planting. Now, I'll put these right out in my garden. By fall, we'll have some beautiful plants. And this is a secret which I have used for many, many years in my own garden. I would not think of going through a season without having chrysanthemums, a row of them out in my garden. We'll take these on down here, put them about 18 inches apart. During the summer, I'll pinch them back and spray them. You'll see me doing this again and again through the season, so you'll see exactly how to handle chrysanthemums. This seems rather a big spacing, but this is what they require if they're going to have room to do their best. Now, these plants would be better, much, much better than anything that you could get if you saved the entire clump. Well, now, let's go into the greenhouse and I'll answer a few questions. Now, I have a plant here hanging in the greenhouse I'd like you to look at. That's a tuberous-rooted begonia. A young plant, started only about 2 months ago, but just beginning to come into blossom. This is a tuberous-rooted begonia. A handsome thing. Comes in yellow and salmon, and orange and red and snowy white, many petal types. Handsome thing that likes a cool, shady place, does best on the East Coast and the West Coast. Another question. Let's get to some questions. Well, this first one sort of got to me today. It said, is it true that Jim Crockett buys all his vegetables at Haymarket Square and sticks them in the ground just before the taping session. Well, you know, I've been accused of heating cables in the ground, of having my garden in Virginia, but this is a new one. No, everything is genuine, just as it happens is when you see it happen. Another question on head lettuce and leaf lettuce. I've had fine results with loose leaf lettuce, but can't get head lettuce to head. What is the secret to growing it? Well, you have to live in the right part of the country, I believe. Parts of Long Island, parts of Michigan, parts of California can produce very good head lettuce because the seasons are cool. But most of us do better with leaf lettuce. That's what I grow. That's the kind with more vitamins in it anyway. Dahlias. I planted my dahlias in pots to take cuttings as you suggested. Please show how to take cuttings properly should the old roots be discarded. Well, now that's the plant that this person was discussing, a dahlia, which an expensive variety. If I had planted the tuber, I would have had one plant. So instead, I planted, that is, in my garden. So I planted it in a flower pot a month ago. So let it come up here, and then cut out the tips of the stems, as you see right here, and made cuttings. And here they are, not quite rooted, but nearly ready to be repotted into good sand. All you do with these, reach up at the tips, again, above a set of leaves, and take off another set of cuttings. And we can get a dozen, 2 dozen plants from that one during the same season, and they'll go into sand. Does moving my fuchsia plant around cause the buds to fall off? Also, how much sun should this plant have? Not full sun, partial shade is great. Moving it around doesn't cause the buds to fall off. What it does is cause the old flowers to fall off, and that's normal anyway. What happens is after the flowers fall off, you're left with this little type of thing, this little seed pod, which I'm going to pick off here and show you, because this is the secret to growing, having your fuchsia continue to blossom. I have so much mud on my hands, I don't know if you can see that one, but there it is. Pick these off, and that's the answer to keep your fuchsia blossoming all summer long. Well, now that's all that I have time for today. Now, on my program next week, I'm going to plant a peach tree. I'm going to plant a privet hedge, and I think you'll find something unique about both of those. And because we've had so many requests, I'm going to demonstrate the techniques of laying sod. I'm Jim Crockett on Crockett's Victory Garden. I hope you enjoy the program every week.